Welcome, Lotuses. I am super excited. Tonight is season 1, episode 1. Woo! I have been waiting for this show. Let me tell you, we have been working on this podcast for months now. And the different things that we've been through just to get to tonight has been crazy. But I know it's been crazy for a reason. This is going to be an amazing season. Do you hear me? We are going to talk about some of the most taboo topics. There aren't going to be any topics off limits. Do you hear me? I promise you. Stay tuned for this season. Share tonight's video. Tell a friend. Tell your auntie. Tell your grandpa. Tell everybody. I don't care. My name's Maddie, and I am your host. We will be reading letters from the Lotus Letters podcast vault. Try to say that 5 times. Took me 25 just to learn it. Tonight's show is about harnessing your second wind, and I am going to read our very first letter. Dear self, today was a bit challenging indeed. Learn to afford yourself just a little more grace. Continue to work the course. Navigate and enjoy the process to the best of your ability. Don't overthink it this time. By all means, please try not to overreact and make sure you learn the lessons, especially the hard ones. The do-overs in general waste time. The hard do-overs waste time and energy. Most importantly, remember, this is a process and you are being processed. I know most of you follow me on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and you've seen my journey. I started September the 1st with the weight loss. Woo! Pat myself on the back for that. And it has been life-changing by far. I entitled tonight's show, Harnessing Your Second Wind. It truly came from me cooking in the kitchen with my children. And I said to them, ooh, I'm 45, but I'm feeling a second wind. And it was like, oh, Mom, that's dope. And my baby boy, William, he said, you should call it harnessing your second wind. And I said, that's great, twin. So we have tonight's show, harnessing your second wind. Because I really feel like I'm in my second wind. I am in my second wind. I'm declaring it. But it took some harnessing. And with the harnessing, it took strategies. And over tonight's show and episode 2, I'm going to share those 8 strategies with you. I'm going to release 4 of them tonight. When you think about your second wind, just really sit and think about it. That second wind is relatable to working out and exercise. Let's use that one. If you are an athlete or if you work out daily, you know when you start your warm up and you're going, and then you sometimes feel like you're getting to that last stretch of the mile, and you get a burst of energy, and you're able to go a little bit further. You're able to do a little bit more. And sometimes you can go a little bit faster. That's what I think about when I think about the second wind. It usually comes when you're right at your breaking point. It usually comes when you're right at your point of exhaustion and you feel like you can go a little bit more. That's called renewed energy. That's called renewed strength. So now we have our second wind. Let's think about harnessing. Harnessing is used to control something. So when you put those 2 thoughts together, you're now controlling your renewed energy and strength. And when you can control that thing, you can then determine and decide what that renewed energy and strength is going to yield in your life. I had to start with my health. My health was crap. I don't have another word for you. Well, that's a lie. I do, but we won't use it on the podcast. I felt horrible. My body was aching. My mind was cloudy. My conversation was negative. Changing my physical helped me with the shift in my mental. And changing my physical started with changing my diet. I had to stop putting any and everything in my mouth. And I had to stay out those freaking drive-thrus. I tell people all the time, that drive-thru is driving you right to your funeral, driving right on through. I had to eat clean. My first 30 days, I drank only water. I had no sugary drinks at all. I really had to start counting calories. I started counting carbs. I micromanaged everything I put in my mouth the first 30 days. The same way we should guard our ear gates and our eye gates, we need to guard this pie hole. Everything shouldn't be going into that either. Then I incorporated exercise. So the two of those compiled together helped with my physiological, the different traumas that I was holding in my body, because my mind was speaking to my body. I wasn't releasing it in any capacity. So when those two things shifted, I was able to think differently. I was able to see through a different lens. You would be surprised how much your health weighs on the good and the bad associated with your physical and your mental. Start there. The second thing I had to do was shift my mindset. But if I'm working on my physical and mental, mindset ain't too far behind. I detox myself of negativity. That was what I watched on TV. I detoxed of what I was allowing in my ear. I detoxed the people that were in my circles, both professional and personal. I did a major detox. People weren't hearing from me because I was shifting. I was working on harnessing the second wind. It all came from me being tired of where I was and going in circles and trying to start projects and never finishing them. I had to get my thoughts together and harness this second wind. I'm being transparent here, okay, Lotuses? I'm being real transparent. I'm a big picture person, and some of you may be the same. And with being that big picture person, I'll hone in on my goal or my task. And instead of breaking it into smaller goals or smaller tasks, I want to do everything at one time. That's a lot of us, I think, especially those of us, I'm being real transparent, those of us that lack patience. That's going to be another episode. So instead of me wanting to break it in different segments and conquering little objectives at a time, I wanted to have all of it. So that's the third strategy. Don't be afraid to break things into smaller compartments. Learn to celebrate the small victories. What is it in us that we need to always have major victories? Celebrate the small steps. Those small tasks can go on your list of accomplishments. And when you're trying to navigate your next goal, and that goal becomes a little bit more stringent or a little bit harder, you can go back to that list of accomplishments and use it as a cross-reference. Oh, I remember when I was working through that. I remember when I was navigating that and I wanted to give up, but I found my second win and I was able to accomplish it. Use those other goals or those smaller tasks that you've broken up as a point of reference and measurement. Even God, I'll use God as an example. Even God took 7 days. So who are we? Last strategy for tonight's show. Set goals. A lot of us move and maneuver with no clear goal in mind. How do you know what you're working towards if you don't have a goal? Don't be hesitant to write it down. Writing it down will allow you or myself to be able to go back and cross-reference it as a reminder of what you're working towards, especially when you veer off. It's easy to go off on a tangent, especially when you're a person that has a lot of responsibilities. You can zone right back in on that goal. Make sure it's clear. Write it out and form a strategy. And once you have that strategy formed, there's a strategy for the strategy. That's a show right there. A strategy for the strategy. Because a lot of times when we go off and do things on a whim, or we have these bright ideas, they never manifest because you didn't outline the goal. And then there's some of us that have 45 million goals. Those goals now need to be prioritized because they can be used as stepping stones. And that takes us right back to breaking up things into smaller tasks. These strategies are interconnected. Although they stand alone, they are definitely building off of each one. And once you master that first one, you go to that second one. And sometimes you may have to go back to that first one and redo it and re-strategize. Sometimes we do get frustrated in the do-over. We get frustrated and having to start again, but start again. The failure in failure is giving up. There's nothing wrong with a second try. Harness your second win. Start with these 4 strategies and come back next week for the next 4. Make sure you tell a friend about the Lotus Letters podcast. Send your letters in to us. You will be able to see the email address on the screen. Find us on YouTube under the Lotus Letters podcast. Thank you for tuning in. See you next week.